Good evening, fifth graders. Tonight we're going to be getting back into fractions here. So there's a nice little review to get us going and to help remind us about everything we've learned about fractions in the past. To start off with, let's start off with a basic, easy fraction. We have the number 3/4. Okay. Keep in mind the top number is our numerator. The bottom number is our denominator. When we are finding common denominators, we are only dealing with the denominators. Let's remember that, okay? First problem here, we're going to see greater than, less than, equal to. So is 3/4 greater than, less than, or equal to 5/8? Well, we have to compare them with common denominators. We have a 4 and we have an 8. Those are not the same denominator. We have to compare them. So 4 and 8, what do they both go into? Yes, they both go into 24. Yes, they both go into 32, but they each go into 8 as well. So let's just change 3/4 into an 8. We're going to go times 2 times 2 gives me 6/8. This equals 6/8. That equals 5/8. 6/8 is larger. Next problem. 1/6 and 2/9. What can 6 and 9 both go into? We know they both go into 54. Let's just put them both into 54. 54. 1/9. 2/9 into 54. I'm going to go times 9. Times 9 gives me 9/54. Times 6 gives me 18. 18/54 is bigger, which means 2/9 is larger than 1/6. Next problem. 6/9 and 5/6. 9 and 6 again. Let's put them each into, let's put them both into 36 this time. I'll be able to do this. 6/9 into 36. 5/6 into 36. Right, and go all the way up to 54 that time. Let's go times 4 times 4 gives me 24. Times 6 gives me 30. 30 is larger than 24, which means 5/6 is larger. Another problem, we have 6 and 4. 4 can't go into 6. They both go into 12, though. You're right, they both go into 24 as well. Either one works. Let's put them both into 12. 5/6 into 12. 3/4 into 12. 6 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 4 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 is larger than 9, which means 5/6 is greater than 3/4. Okay, let's take a look here. Last set here. On your slates, write whether each fraction is close to 0, half, 1, 1/2, or 2. Let's take a look at some of these numbers here. 2/10. Okay, what would be half of 2/10? Half of 2/10 would be 5/10. Or 2/10, so half of 10 would be 5/10. 2 is closer to 0 than to 5. 6/10. Half of 10 would be 5/10. 5 is closer to 6, so this, which means this is closer to half. 8/10. Once again, we have 5/10, right? Which is half. 5 is not is bigger than half, or 5 would be at half, so that means 8 is closer to 1, right? Perfect. Let's take a look here. 5/10. Is 3 closer to 0 or to 5? It's closer to 5, which means this 5 is at half, right? Because 5 is half of 10, so this is closer to half. 9/8. This also equals 1 and 1/8. In this situation here, kids, now we're not dealing with 5/10 anymore. We're dealing with half would be at 4/8, right? 1's not close to 4/8. 1 is closer to 0. In this case, 1, so we have a 1 here. It's not going to be 0. It's going to be closer to the 1. 15/8. Let's see what this turns into. 1 and 7/8, right? So we know we're far away from 1. How about 1.5? 1.5 would be 1 and 4/8. 7/8 is closer to the number 2. 5/3, which would equal 1 2/3. Half of 3 would be 1.5. Okay, so it's past that. It's closer to 3, so we're going to count that one as a 1.5. So half of 3 would be 1.5 over 3, right? So 1 2/3 is closer to 1.5 than to 2. See how that works, kids? That's a trickier one, okay? 5/9 or 9 over 5 would be 1 4/5. That one's easy. It's closer to 2. 1 3/5. Okay. That's closer to 1.5. Okay. How do we do? Let's double check all of our work. 1.5. Perfect, perfect. It looks good, right, kids? Of course, if I made an error today, please talk to me, but let's just keep this in mind. When we're working with our things, we are working with common denominators. What's closer to 0, half, 1, 1.5, and 2. Last thing before we go, 1/5 into a decimal, to change it into a 10, right? Going times 2. Times 2 gives me 2/10, which equals 0.2. Let's say I have the number 3/4. I'm going to change this into 10, but 4 can't go into 10, so I'm going to change it into 100. Times 25 times 25 gives me a 75, which equals a 0.75. Let's do another one here. Let's do 8 over 20. What would that be as a decimal? Well, I'd have to put 20 into 10. 20 can't go into 10, so let's put it into 100. Times 5 times 5 gives me 40, which would be 0.40. Hope that little refresher helped you, because you're going to see some problems like that tomorrow. Tomorrow should be nice and easy in class, a nice refresher of fractions before we start adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing them. Hopefully this helped, kids. I look forward to working with you in class tomorrow.